In other words, the language of the professionalism which encourages dependency and control needs to be replaced by dialogue which supports neutrality and reciprocity. Good leadership requires proactive, curative measures for the growing sense of restlessness and resentment among the economically disenfranchised, instead of the measures of the past which responded with a harsh stance regarding any signs of delinquency and crime among youth, deciding the most effective way to solve this problem was to contain the problem with a stance of a zero tolerance. And here lies the heart of much social disintegration for Caymanians. Cultural activities and resources that young people without money in their pockets attend were discouraged and even outlawed for a period. Outdoor musical sessions and other and even dreadlocks here. A significant cultural gesture was reason enough to deny entry to school, churches, and commercial establishments. We pause to note that we are simplifying this discussion by excluding even a nod towards social and historical complexities of generational enslavement and continued colonial relationships with Great Britain. But that would require a great deal more time than we have. Instead, we want to focus on the particularities of the studies at hand, and specifically the response of the leadership of the day. The 1980s and 1990s saw a steady flow of new wealth for the country in increased high-end tourism and a growing successful banking industry, while leadership was busy commissioning promotional expo from afar and initiated studies on branding. These financially successful enterprises, they neglected an essential element of good governance, an equal concern for social and cultural development, including, we will argue, the facilitation of a necessary measure of grassroots cultural activities. By grassroots, we mean social and cultural activities and products that come from the people, as opposed to the commercial and civic events and products created for the people. This is essentially important when we are considering the peculiarities of the generational process of economic and social marginalization experienced by the communities we now refer to as most at risk. We can begin to see here where the element of empowerment comes into play, or rather, in this case, disempowerment. The Cayman Islands have traveled many years away from the days when there were but a few disenfranchised youth to today when those few youth are the grandfathers and granduncles of the now significant numbers who we are concerned with because they threaten the Caymanian brand of peace and tranquility, a safe haven for weddings and investments. Nevertheless, the reactions of the state have not altered were not altered in spite of the imminent dangers, and perhaps this is because the nature of government is to show more power the more it is challenged. And the more power the state exhibits, the more resistance the disenfranchised become. Part of the origins of governance inability to lead or empower this segment of our society is public attitude and opinions. This is well demonstrated in the language of Vision 2008. We will not tolerate criminal activity or drug abuse. And under this type of strategy, we will develop and implement a policy of a zero tolerance for crime and drug abuse. Thus, rather than calling for increased research and empowering strategies, the people convinced their leadership that a harsh stance with regard to delinquency and crime is the most effective way to solve or at least contain the problem. But perhaps as much as the views of our society must be respected, because we live in a democracy, public opinion is the illusion, not the reality. And effective social strategies have to be built on scientific research and deep-rooted analysis. Part of any social prescription must be an overview of the challenges faced by the institutions of government in leading the society towards acceptance of a common view and solution when it comes to repairing social breakdowns. And we are not idealists to be accepted. So we accept that this condition is almost impossible to achieve. Nevertheless, solutions of this nature without government participation are impossible, not so much because we need government to lead, but because of the amount of material resources needed to make a difference in our very materialistic society. In other words, we do not advocate government leadership, but government participation in the form of providing the needed resources to tackle problems the size of those we are experiencing in the Cayman Islands. While we are on the topic of public opinion and how it conditions leadership and governance in regards to a search for and implementation of social strategies, let us deal briefly with how public opinion influences social research by using examples from studies done for the Cayman government. In most cases, these studies involve recruitment of social scientists from jurisdictions outside Cayman. Not that you have to know me to study me, but certainly there are different levels of social reality, and the level which we believe help to solve problems is the level at which the subject remains an individual to the researcher. Most of the research done so far involved qualitative empiricism, which has depended on interviewing a sample population. The methodology is known to most of us. It involves the interviewer designing a series of questions and asking the subjects to the answer to these questions. And of course the subject will give the answer he expects that the interviewer wants to hear. And this again means that the subject is conscious of public opinions. This was very much the case in the family study which was done for the Cayman Islands government and the more recent crime study submitted by Yolanda Ford in 2006. The result of this study is the building of a profile of the typical Caymanian criminal through interviews with Northwood inmates. Yet every prisoner, once you have spent a sufficient amount of time to allow for his individuality to be safely expressed, will reveal his own personal and unique understanding of the causes of his criminal conduct. Importantly, crime is not just caused by identifiable social economic reasons, but also by the reactions of individuals to these conditions, which is the result of the way in which each individual reconstructs their relationship with these social and economic conditions through a reflective process that is unique to each individual. Thus, it is being argued that this particular methodology used in mostly all previous studies not only missed the real causes of social breakdown and criminality in Cayman, but assisted in further alienating and disempowering those that have lived most of their lives as marginalized members of our society. If you were locked up and you felt you had come to our prison unfairly, whether or not this is true or imagined, how would you feel if somebody visited you only to know why you did what was proven you had done without providing you with even a spark of hope that your story and state of the society's story is important? You would feel even less worth. The prisoner will tell you what you want to hear, because what you are looking for, although you claim to be using methodology that is scientific, therefore fair or just, is a confirmation of public opinions as it stands. We suggest that not only is this type of social research dehumanizing, it is also a waste of public funds because it stimulates institutionalized solutions to what are individual challenges. Now, we are not saying that certain economic and social conditions are not the breeding grounds for many of our social ills.